Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to demystify an absolutely chaotic century of European history. We're looking really closely at how two massive, frankly unstoppable forces, the Industrial Revolution and nationalism, collided to tear down old empires and basically build the modern world. It's a story of incredible progress, sure, but also one of really deep, explosive division.
When France sneezes, Europe catches a cold. And this brilliantly illustrates just how volatile things were at the time. Clemens von Metternich, the Chancellor of Austria, used this exact phrase to perfectly summarize the contagious nature of French revolutionary ideas. You see, a single spark of rebellion in Paris had a really nasty habit of igniting revolts across the entire continent.
Okay, let's dive into this. We have a solid roadmap to guide us through this massive web of geography and ideology. We'll start with Europe's post-Napoleon order, move into the birth of socialism, check out the era of revolutions, look at the forging of Italy and Germany, and wrap up with the clash of capital.
Section 1. Europe's post-Napoleon order and the Congress of Vienna. Let's set the stage right in the aftermath of the year 1815.
Following Napoleon Bonaparte's final defeat at Waterloo, the old monarchs of Europe frantically scrambled to cram the genie right back into the bottle. The second they regained their former positions, they immediately tried to restore their absolute power. Diplomats sat down and drew up totally unworkable borders that completely ignored the idea of nationality, willfully forgetting all the hard lessons of the preceding decades.
To actually enforce this, they created the Concert of Europe. Under the pretext of just maintaining the political status quo, these reactionary monarchies forcefully intervene to crush any democratic and nationalistic trends. If a rebellion popped up in, say, Naples or Spain, foreign troops were promptly sent in to smash it. Liberty was, to put it mildly, in critically short supply.
But here's the catch. While the monarchs were hyper-focused on the macro level of their sprawling empires, a totally new reality was brewing at the micro level of the working class. The political repression from the top was crashing headfirst into the grim realities of the Industrial Revolution at the very bottom. The old ways of working from home were dead. Workers were packed into cramped tenement houses next to factories. We are talking about abominably low wages and punishing 15-hour workdays for men, women, and even children as young as 10, all driven by the aggressive expansion of factory owners.
Section 2. The birth of socialism. We're going to trace the ideological shift from utopian dreams straight into scientific theory.
Now, early socialists weren't actually revolutionaries fighting in the streets. Well, not at first anyway. They were idealists trying to design perfectly harmonious societies. The goal was to set up these model communities where the means of production would be collectively owned. The hope was that this would entirely eradicate the rampant poverty and unemployment created by early industrialization.
Two pivotal figures in this utopian movement were Claude-Henri Saint-Simon and Robert Owen. Saint-Simon was a French aristocrat who pushed for scientists of all people to lead a new social order and alleviate poverty. Robert Owen, on the other hand, was actually a factory owner himself in Manchester. He was so deeply shocked by the misery of the workers that he practically invented workplace welfare. He absolutely refused to employ children under 10, provided education, and heavily advocated for cooperative agricultural and industrial communities. But as working conditions worsened and those early peaceful schemes really struggled to catch on, the tone shifted drastically. In 1848, the Communist Manifesto declared, "Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains." The conversation aggressively pivoted away from designing peaceful utopias and went straight toward inevitable class struggle.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels didn't view their work as some utopian dream. They called it scientific socialism. They formulated a concrete prophecy based on economic analysis that just as capitalism had replaced feudalism, a class-conscious working mass, the proletariat, would inevitably rise up, seize power from the ruling bourgeoisie minority, and inaugurate an entirely new social state.
Section 3. The era of revolutions. This is where those brewing socialist and liberal ideas erupt into physical, violent confrontation as the people take the streets.
Over in England, the working class organized a massive, highly structured campaign known as the Chartist movement. Hundreds of thousands of people attended mass meetings to demand basic political rights, things like universal suffrage and the secret ballot. Honestly, things we largely take for granted today. And even though the government completely panicked, sent in the army, and literally turned London into an armed camp to push them back, this movement laid the profound groundwork for future democratic reforms.
While England's reforms were sort of slowly bubbling, France was outright exploding. Remember those repeated sneezes Metternich warned about? Well, France ignited massive, violent uprisings in 1789, 1830, 1848, and again in 1871. Each and every one of these revolts sent political shockwaves rippling through the rest of the continent, deeply threatening the old aristocratic order everywhere.
For instance, look at the July Revolution of 1830. King Charles X foolishly tried to suspend freedom of the press and strip 3/4 of the electorate of their voting rights. The reaction from the street level was immediate. The Parisian masses took straight to the barricades and fought so fiercely that the royal forces were completely overwhelmed, forcing the king to pack his bags and flee into exile.
Fast forward a bit to 1871, and we see the astonishing Paris Commune. After a brutal 5-month Prussian siege that left the city literally starving, the working-class citizens and the National Guard just took control of Paris. They implemented incredibly radical measures, like banning night work in bakeries and providing pensions for widows. But this short-lived triumph ended in absolute tragedy. The French Republican government aggressively crushed the Commune in an unbelievable way of violence, with an estimated 20,000 to 30,000 Parisians killed right there in the streets.
Section 4. Forging Italy and Germany. As we step away from the barricades of France, let's look at the second major force of the century, nationalism, and how it used blood and iron to forge powerful new nations.
You know, for centuries, Italy was basically just a geographical expression. It was totally split into dozens of fragmented states heavily influenced by foreign powers. But figures like Giuseppe Garibaldi, famous for his legendary red shirts, changed all of that. Known as the sword arm of Italian unification, Garibaldi waged this brilliant guerrilla warfare. He landed in Sicily with just 1,000 volunteers, managed to conquer southern Italy, and worked alongside the ideological soul, Mazzini, and the diplomatic brain, Count Cavour, to finally stitch Italy's patchwork of states together into one nation.
Meanwhile, in a heavily divided Germany, liberal attempts to create a unified nation through elected assemblies and constitutions had pretty much failed. But this famous quote highlights a radically different approach. The unification of Germany was not going to come from idealistic speeches. No, as Otto von Bismarck so bluntly put it, it would be achieved by blood and iron.
So the crucial point is that Otto von Bismarck, the Chancellor of Prussia, was the ultimate diplomatic mastermind of his era. He recognized that to unite the 39 Germanic states under Prussian leadership, peaceful negotiation just wasn't going to cut it. He needed to forcibly expel Austrian influence and rally the German states against common enemies. Armed conflict wasn't an accident, it was an absolute necessity in his grand design.
Let's walk through Bismarck's game plan, which was a masterful, highly deliberate 3-step sequence of wars. Step 1. A joint war with Austria against Denmark in 1864 to claim disputed territories. Step 2. He completely turns on his ally, isolating and defeating Austria in the 7 Weeks' War in 1866 to form the North German Confederation. And finally, Step 3, he tactically provokes France into the Franco-Prussian War in 1870, drawing the southern German states into a newly unified, incredibly powerful German empire.
Section 5. The Clash of Capital, covering the Gilded Age and the Long Depression. The end of the 19th century brought unprecedented industrial booms, but it also brought massive economic friction. To really put this into perspective, the hard data is just staggering. In the United States in 1892 alone, a whopping 164,000 workers were involved in 1,298 different strikes. The rise of these massively powerful consolidated industries led directly to immense union mobilization. And the major corporations? They launched heavy counteroffensives against these unions. Events like the Homestead Steel Strike and the Pullman Railroad Strike didn't just end in arguments, they culminated in literal gun battles, with management bringing in armed police and Pinkerton detectives to violently smash the strikes. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really provocative question to think about. We've seen old empires forcefully redraw their borders, we've witnessed the birth of socialism, the violent, calculated forging of Italy and Germany, and the incredibly bloody clash between everyday workers and mega-industry. Did these dual forces of nationalism and socialism truly build a more equal modern world? Or did they merely load the powder keg and set the stage for the catastrophic, massive conflicts of the 20th century? Think about the heavy foundation that was laid right here.
Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning the history that shapes our world today.